Hello, this is the Spying Dutchman. This is going to be a Disgaea Prinny deck profile video for Weiss Schwarz. I saw some people on the Facebook communities asking for a deck list today, and since I just built this deck when Disgaea was released in English, I thought I would go ahead and try doing a deck profile. So I'm just going to start at level 0 and then go to level 3. Going to point out some weaknesses and strengths, maybe some cards that I'm thinking about tweaking, running more or less of. But I'm going to go ahead and start. So at level 0, I play 16 cards. 6 of this, which is the Reborn Krichevskoy. So this is a really nice card. It comes in the TD and also the booster. You can run as many cards of this as you want. And when it attacks, you can give 1500 power to one of your other characters. So this is really good. You can use it throughout the game. I've used it from level 0 all the way up to even level 3. Helps you get over, anything that your opponent has. And then next, I run 3 of the Prinny Squad, which is the green Prinny that you can find in the trial deck or in the booster. This is not nearly as good as the other one. It's also 1500 power, which is not much, but its ability, and you can run as many of these as you want as well, but I don't see why you would even run 4, or at least more than 4. But anyway, so the ability is you can ditch a Prinny from the stage, so send it to waiting room, another one, not this card, to give one of your opponent's center stage characters minus 1000 power. So that's really only good if they have something like a Hibiki that needs to be reversed to have an effect happen. And then you can just send it to the waiting room and they don't get the effect. But if it's anything above 1000 power, it's not really worth it. So honestly, in general, it's just basically for green, and I've been thinking about taking it down to 1 or 2 cards. So next I run 4 of the Player 2 Etna. That's the global to all demon and Prinny characters, which is everything in this deck. The Prinny deck is Prinnys, Etnas, and Fukas. The Fukas and the Prinnys are Prinny trait characters, and the Etnas are largely demon and I think demon weapon. Yeah, demon weapon characters, but demon. There's one Etna that I run that's a Prinny trait. But anyway, so this has no power. Sometimes I use it early game, or sometime if I need to swing for soul and I don't really care about something staying on the board, I need to just swing for soul, that's good. But otherwise, it gives 500 power to all my characters. And then I run 2 of the strongest in the world Etna. It's a red 2500, which is fine. It can fight against most level 0 games. But what's really cool about it that I like, it's really a neat ability, is that when it comes into play, if your opponent doesn't have any climaxes in the waiting room, then you can take a card from the waiting room and top deck it. So it's basically like free damage. So that when it attacks, depending on if it's a direct attack or soldier, but it's basically like free damage. So the last card I run at level 0 is one of these Grill and Prinny Fukas. I've thought about running like 2 of these for the yellow color. But you really don't need yellow until you get basically to level 2. But I just run 1. It's a pretty good card. It's not great, but you rest 2 characters to give it a level and 1500 power. So it becomes a level 1 4K for the turn, which is good because it can get over bombs, and I've used the 4K power and even boosted it with the Reborn Krichevskoy to get it high enough that it can beat any level 0 without a problem, no matter if it's a bomb or anything. Okay, so at level 1, I run I'll run a playset of the Overlord's Vassal Etna, which is necessary for this deck basically, because with the climax combo with the gate, which is this right here, on attack you pay 1 to search your deck for a Prinny character. So, which is great because this is the Prinny deck. The only drawback is that you can't search for Etnas other than the one that I'll show you later. But it's good because, you're paying 1 stock to search. I think that's pretty good. As long as you get like at least 3 stock by the time you play these in the front row and, do the combo, you have enough stock to keep going throughout the game. I don't always, I've actually played a full front row of this, and maybe I'll search with 2, wait for climaxes to pay them out. Anyway, it also has an act ability that you can pay 1 to make any Prinny character a suicide, a bomb. So you can even do this to your level 2 and 3 characters, And if for some reason your opponent has something that's just really big, I don't know, maybe Titans or something, you can suicide against them or whatever. Haven't had the chance to use it, but I think it still has potential to be used. And then I run 4 of the gates. The gate is actually really good because even though you can't search for a lot of the Etnas, if you trigger the gate, you're definitely going to go for the Etnas that you can normally not search for. Also at level 1, I have this Sharp Criticism Etna. This is really good. It's a 105k, but when it comes into play, it gets 500 power for every one of your Demon or Prinny characters, which again is everything in the deck. So a lot of times I have this, you know, as big as at least 8k when it's attacking. I've had it as big as 10.5. I guess in the best circumstances you could have it like 11 plus, but that's probably not going to happen, and it's not an ideal situation with what you have on the board. Anyway, this gets over a lot of stuff at level 1, pretty much anything at level 1, and even level 2. Beyond that, when you get to level 3, you know, whatever. But this is a good card. Run 3 of it. Gets really big. I run 2 of the cute little Demon Etnas. I don't like that it's a one stock card, but it has 2 abilities. The main reason I run it is as an Akatsuki effect, so come into play, discard, look up the top 4 for Demon or Prinnies, and then choose one, add it to hand. It's also an assist. I personally really do not like assist, so it gives 500 power times the amount of assist cards you have, and considering the globals are not actually assist, these are the only assist cards I run, so they only give 500 times how many of these I have on the board, which I have 2, and I never, you know, really even want to have 2 on the board at the same time. If I did, they'd each be giving 1,000, but I pretty much never am going to want to do that. I've thought about running more because the Akatsuki effect is great. I hate spending the 1 stock to try to do it. And it's better just to have the global in the back row or somewhere, honestly. I also run this Majin Etna, which is yellow. Starts color fixing, which you really need yellows at level 2. But this card is pretty cool. Even though it's only a 45, it's costless, which is good. And if you have at least 4 climaxes in your waiting room or more, it gets 1 soul. So you can start side attacking for 1 when it can't beat things, or you can just ram it for 2 soul, which, you know, I've used definitely at the ends of games to, you know, get enough damage through. And then lastly, at level 1, I run 2 of these 1/1 Fuka backups. I really like these in the Prinny deck. They're great. They're 1500s, but as long as you have a Prinny character on board, they become 2500s. The problem with this card is that none of the level 1s besides this, which are not going to be playing on the field, none of the level 1 cards in the deck are actually Prinnies. So if you're backing up a level 1, unless you have a level, you know, one of the 0 Prinnies on board, which you can, it's only going to be a 1500 backup. So, you know, you're not really going to use it unless you're preventing an on-reverse effect, which, you know, that's great. You can use it for its 1500 power still. But otherwise, it's, you know, kind of better later game. Okay, so on to level 2. This is the other climax combo I run, which is the 2/1 Fuka combo. I've actually found this to be really useful. It seems kind of like it might be a little silly, but I actually like using it, and just recently this past week in locals I've used it to get over a lot of situations. So it's a 2/175. It has Clock Encore, which is actually really nice, but it combos with this 2K1 Prinny Wars card that on placement of the 2K1 where you draw, of course, you can discard to if the character across from wherever this is level 2 or lower, that character can be sent back to your opponent's deck, and then of course they shuffle. So this card is actually really good for either, if anything, decompressing your opponent, especially if they're right before a refresh, helps you get that extra damage through. And, you know, it's a 75, which is good, but if for some reason your opponent has something really annoying, like some sort of 2/2 that gets really big and they're, you know, over 10k and you're not going to get over, you can just send it back to their deck and you're direct attacking for 2. This stays alive and you can give the 2k one to another one of the characters on the board. Yeah, and since you're drawing from the 2k one, you can at least fuel and not minus hand size for 1. Sometimes I put two out on the board, and you know, I'll minus my hand size 1 more just so that I can get rid of stuff and give them free damage that goes to their clock, whatever. But it's a really fun card to play. Anyway, so I run 4 of those, and of course I run 4 of the climaxes to go along with it. The other card I run at level 2 is the Etna that is also partially Prinny trait. Let's see if it... Anyway, Demon and Prinny. So this is... Anyway, so the other level 2 that I run in the deck is the Tyrant Etna. She's the free fresh. She also comes with character encore, but of course the great thing about her is that she's a free fresh. So if you have 5 or less character or 5 or less cards left in your deck on play, you can you know, add your waiting room back to your deck and refresh your deck without any damage penalty. So she's kind of nice. She's, you know, 2/2, 2 soul, beater 75. Normally I'm swinging with her at, you know, like 8k. Anyway, so she's nice. I run 2 of her for the free fresh. So anyway, lastly, going on to level 3, which is where the fun cards are in this deck. First off, I run the early play Fuka here, which is a really fun card to play. You don't really see really interesting effects like this anymore. So the condition for her early play is 5 or less in deck. So if you're going to play the free fresh in the same turn as the early play, you make sure to play the early play first and then the free fresh so that the card condition is still there for the early play. Anyway, so this is really cool. I run 2 of it. When it comes into play for the turn, it gets 3,000 power and 2 soul. So that's really cool because it's, you know, huge and it's swinging for 4 soul. That's not exactly something that you just randomly see get stuck on an early play nowadays. It also has the effect that not just the turn it comes out, but just as long as every turn, you know, continuous auto ability. That whenever this attacks and damage is canceled by this card, you can pay 1 to prevent your opponent from encoring for the turn. I think I've only got to use that in a really good situation maybe once so far or twice so far, but it's still a cool ability if you know that your opponent still has level 3s out or something. It's really cool. But yeah, I run 2 of these. And then, so the main level 3 that you're going to want to play in this deck is the Aloof Majin Etna. This is a good card. It's a demon weapon. You can't search it out, unfortunately. But the when it comes into play, it heals. So it's a nice healer. And then also, as long as all of your characters are demon or Prinny, which actually, sorry, as long as all your characters are Prinny or have the name Etna, which is going to be everything in the deck, it gets 2,000 power continuously. So at bare minimum, this is always going to be a 11,500 that heals on play. And oftentimes for me, it's a 12k or 12.5. But anyway, I really like this card. It's good in this deck. I run 4 of them. And last but not least, what everybody's probably been waiting for, the Pringer X. So I only run 1 of these. It's not a great card, but of course you have to run it in the deck. It's fun. Most situations it does what it's meant to do. It's kind of a specific in-game card. My advice and how I run it is you have to you have to plan ahead of time to play this card. So for people that don't know what it does, it's a bodyguard. We call it Great Performance, which I think is hilarious. Anyway, so as long as this is in the center position of your center stage, if this is not reversed, your opponent has to attack this, even if they're not in the direct slots across from it. And it gets 1,500 power for every marker underneath it. And the way it gets markers underneath it is it has this act ability that you take a Prinny character from your stage and you put it underneath it as a marker. When you do that, the Pringer X gets 1 soul for the turn, but it continuously gets that 1500. So the way that I usually use it is I, put it in the center, and I usually put like 3 markers down underneath it to make it a 14 and a half. Usually I'll have like one of the globals or the assist behind it. So it's like a 15k, which is pretty good for a bodyguard. I don't want to put... you have to have other things to attack with it. You can't just have a bodyguard sitting there. So the thing about, just feeding Prinnies into this, you need to make sure that you have at least 2 other things to attack with. But it's pretty good. If you have it at like 15k, I think that's a decent size. It's a decent size bodyguard. People really have to try to get over it. And if you're playing against somebody that's got a deck that just doesn't really, pump out firepower, so to speak, they're not going to get over it. It's really good in combination with the 1/1 backup. I've had a game recently where somebody attacked it. They thought they were going to get over it at 16k, and then bam, 2500 power, and this is suddenly 17.5. The turn that you use the ability to put markers underneath it gets a lot of soul, and you're swinging for a lot. Like when I put 3 markers underneath it in the instances with me, swinging for 5, which is a lot, but that, you could side attack if you wanted. Anyway, so yeah, that's basically the deck. I have a lot of fun with it. There's I think the couple things that, if you're going to run it, that you need to look out for is that you can't search for things like this level 3/2 Etna. So you just kind of have to, kind of plan around when you, the Etnas that you get. Otherwise, it's really fun, and it actually runs really smoothly. But yeah, so thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy.